The Bible Treasury. A monthly magazine of papers on scriptural subjects. Volume 19, Article 15, Part 3 of 15, 1892 and 1893. Thoughts on 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 10-12. Now all apparently depends on man's faithfulness, and necessarily the brightness is increasingly overshadowed until completely extinguished. The distant, as yet, black cloud had its beginning in Rehoboam's reign. Morally its dark shadow began when Solomon multiplied his wives. It was the penumbra of the coming eclipse. In such a crowd of heathen women is it a wonder that Rehoboam proves to be a foolish son and constrains Solomon to say, "A foolish son is a grief to his father and bitterness to her that bare him." His first act was one of extreme folly, more like the cruel despotism of an oriental tyrant than of wisdom that should have characterized the son of Solomon. But this folly, the immediate cause and occasion of the revolt of the 10 tribes, is the consequence and fruit of Solomon's sin, and the beginning of the public manifestation of divine wrath. Solomon in his later years made Israel's yoke heavy. He chastised them with whips, but Rehoboam's foolish resolve brought their discontent to a head, and the slumbering tribal jealousy now blazes forth with increased virulence, and a leader appears who gives form and cohesion to the rebellious spirit of the 10 tribes. A prophet had told Jeroboam that he should rule over them. This man is the appointed executor of God's judgment, and a breach is made in Israel which will only be healed when the true and wise king shall come and sit on the throne. When Rehoboam gathered an army to punish the revolted tribes, he is forbidden by the Lord. "Ye shall not go up to fight against your brethren, return every man to his own house, for this thing is done of me." 2 Chronicles 11 verse 4. They obeyed. This seems like bowing to God's judgment, and for 3 years they walked in the way of David and Solomon. The priests and the Levites leave their possessions and come to Jerusalem, for Jeroboam's policy would not permit them to execute the priest's office unto the Lord. And so they strengthened the kingdom of Judah. For 3 years this foolish son acted wisely. Yet that the glory of Solomon's earlier years was gone, what greater proof than Rehoboam building and fortifying cities in Judah? Against whom? Against Israel, as against others. While he dealt wisely, he prospered. But the same snare which caused Solomon's fall brings Rehoboam into more open guilt. And the people follow him. True then, as the prophet said later, "My people love to have it so." When he had strengthened himself he forsook the law of the Lord, and all Israel with him. Why is it said here, all Israel with him, when the 10 tribes had forsaken the law and the temple led by Jeroboam's priests? May it not be that Judah is called Israel as remaining true to David's house, and so far on covenant ground when the 10 tribes had forsaken it and morally were no longer Israel, which name is here limited to the 2 tribes which clave to the house of David and to the temple. The priests and the Levites, who had before left their possessions for the sake of the temple, now follow the king in his departure from the Lord, and thus it is all Israel with him. This thing is done of me. This explains how it was that 10 tribes as with one mind so suddenly shook off allegiance to the house of David. A fugitive servant no sooner blows his trumpet than they follow him. It was the judgment of the Lord, pronounced in Solomon's day, executed in the days of his son. "But I will take the kingdom out of his son's Rehoboam's hand and will give it unto thee Jeroboam, even 10 tribes, 1 Kings 11 verse 35. There were 2 great tribes, Ephraim and Judah, and there was exhibited on more than one occasion a spirit of rivalry and jealousy by Ephraim, if not by Judah. God allowed this old rivalry to reappear. It had been repressed under the splendor of the reigns of David and Solomon, but not extinguished, and Rehoboam's folly brought it to the surface as bitter as in times of old. Ephraim, as the representative of Joseph, was always jealous of his birthright privileges and importance and claimed preeminence. For did not all his brethren bow to Joseph? The past history seemed to confirm his claims. He was in the first rank in their march through the wilderness. Manasseh, though the elder, was officially and prophetically placed second by Jacob, Genesis 48 verse 19. Ephraim resented the prominence of Judah. Was not Joshua an Ephraimite? And he was their great leader after Moses. Samuel was born within the borders of their lot. Shechem and Shiloh were places of renown and of resort for all Israel, and these places were in their territory. All these, if not advantages, were circumstances which would lead the other tribes to give Ephraim the most prominent place, which he was not slow to take. Hence Ephraim had preponderating influence, so much so that in the prophecies the 10 tribes are often called Ephraim. See their jealousy in not being foremost in Gideon's victory over the Midianites, Judges 8. His meek answer mollified their wrath. The same spirit was seen when Jephthah had overcome the Ammonites. In this case, they were called and refused. Nevertheless, they resented his victory. Who was Jephthah, the child of a concubine? Should Ephraim follow him? But the man they despise is victorious, and this they resent. It was resenting the mercy of God who had wrought a great deliverance for them. Their jealousy rose to the extent of civil war, in which they were defeated. This defeat apparently kept them quiet even when Saul the Benjamite was made king. And there was no pretext for manifesting it, save in the case of Sheba, 2 Samuel 20, during the lives of David and Solomon. It was the folly of Rehoboam that gave occasion for its reappearance, never to depart till the true and wise king comes, who will unite in his own person the power of the ruler, and the privileges and glory pertaining to the birthright. Judah may have taunted Ephraim that the ruler came not from Ephraim, and then what was the advantage of having the birthright? Ephraim envied Judah the privilege and honor of giving the ruler which naturally belonged to him who held the birthright. In the coming day, Ephraim will acknowledge that the birthright is his who fulfills in his own person the original promise when he appears to reign over all Israel. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart and the adversaries, Ephraim of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah and Judah shall not vex Ephraim, Isaiah 11. As we read that Solomon loved many strange, foreign, women, and then of the establishment of idolatry, so here is the turning point in Rehoboam's prosperity. He desired many wives and then when he was strengthened in his kingdom, he forsook the law of the Lord. The next recorded event is the invasion by Shishak king of Egypt, the Holy Spirit expressly adding, because they had transgressed against the Lord, 2 Chronicles 12.